Okay, here we go. I'm going to try my best to explain Nan's father's side of the family, and this is why it's been so hard because, well, I'll show you in a second, but Mum's DNA results are a nightmare to filter through, and here's why. So Nan's great-grandparents on her father's side are Elwyn and Jane and John and Henrietta, and I'll do them separately so you can see. But the children of Elwyn and Jane are Elwyn, Robert, Reuben and George. So one of these is Nan's grandfather on her dad's side. And I've determined that because of DNA matching and a third cousin that matched with Mum. And since we're third cousins, it means that we share a second great grandparent, and she was able to tell me which of the second great grandparents we shared. So that's how we determined that. So one of these is Nan's grandfather. So down here, again, this is John Giddis. So this is her great grandfather, and this is all of his kids here, and one of those girls is Nan's paternal grandmother. But John married Henrietta Salter, but he had a second wife, which was Emily Salter, and Emily and Henrietta are sisters. So he had 4 kids with Emily and 7 with Henrietta. But because he's had kids with 2 sisters, it makes all of these kids, they're all first cousins, but they're also half siblings because they share a father, right? Okay, so now if we look at the spouses of these pigeon boys up here, we have Elwyn and Ellen Giddis, Robert and Ethel, Reuben and Phoebe, George and Edith. But you'll obviously see that these Giddis girls came from over here. So pigeons married the Giddises. Now that doesn't mean that they're related. That's 2 separate families. Well, kind of, except for here. So that's 2 separate families, but because 3 sisters have married 3 brothers, then it makes their kids cousins 2 ways. But then it gets even more confusing because I've just written here the spouses of the Giddis family, which again is the pigeon boys, except for Lavinia Giddis, who married Walter Farrow. And we all know that the Farrow family was Ada Farrow, and that is Nan's grandmother. That's Myrtle's mother. We'll get to that in a minute. So we have Giddises that have married pigeons that have also married Farrows. And again, they're not related to each other. Yeah, we've also got another one over here, Edward Giddis, who came from this line, married Harriet Farrow, which was Myrtle's Auntie Harriet. So down here, are you confused yet? We have the children of the pigeon boys and the Giddis girls and the Farrow brother and sister. And I've just highlighted under their names to show you which family they come from. And I'm going to cut some of these ties in a minute because along the way I've figured out that some of these can't lead to being Nan's dad. So all of the children, which are these ones here and this one, they're all cousins 3 ways because they're cousins. There's Farrow and pigeon cousins, there's Farrow and Giddis cousins, and there's Giddis and pigeon cousins. Okay, so up here we have Nan's great-grandparents on her mother's side. So this is Ada and Myrtle's family. So I'm not going to look too far into the Quinn line, only because as far as I can tell, they don't cross over. It's the Farrow line that crosses over with the Pigeon and the Giddis line. So you have obviously 4 sets of great grandparents, which Nan obviously does. 2 sets on the father's side and 2 sets on the mother's side. So then we have all of the children of Harriet and William. So the ones that we really focus on are Ada, obviously, which is Nan's grandmother. And then we have Walter and we have Harriet, and those 2 married again down here. Where are they? So Harriet married a Giddis and Walter married a Giddis as well. So I've just written a few notes, like all the Farrows all came from the Huon area. So when I'm looking for potential fathers for Nan, I'm looking at someone who was in that area at the time that Nan was conceived. Just to try and narrow it down a little bit, I've tried looking at people who were dead before Nan was conceived, and that's why this list would be a lot longer. But I have cut people off purely based on whether they were dead, whether they were too old, or something along those lines. And then, yes, we've got Ada and who she married, and then Harriet and Walter, who married the 2 Giddises. So their children are cousins 2 ways as well. That's exactly the same as the same scenario that Uncle Ian and Auntie Jo got married, and Auntie Roe and Uncle Greg got married. So that's their kids are cousins 2 ways as well. So you can kind of relate that to how that works there. And then we've got Ada's children. Obviously, we've got Myrtle, which is Nan's mum. And then down here, potential fathers for Nan. So Jack Pigeon, he came from up here. And I think we can cut that one because Ellen wasn't a sister of the Giddises. She was a cousin. She had different parents that weren't one of these ones. So we can snip that one. That one's done. And then we've got Len and Ronald Pigeon over here. Len has got 2 living kids still, but I haven't been able to find them. And Ronald was already married and had kids at the time that Nan was conceived. So I'm not cancelling out anybody that was already married or had kids, because obviously, people do things. But it may narrow it down a little bit. Len and Ronald seem to be the only 2 that were in the Huon area in 1933, which was when Nan was conceived. And then we've got Sid Pigeon, who didn't marry until 8 years after Nan was born, and he didn't have any kids except for a step kid he had with her. And Harry Pigeon did get married and only had 1 child, who again I haven't been able to find yet. I believe they're still living, which is why I can't find them. So we can cross off Jack, and we're left with these 4 who, if we have a look at the dates, where are we? These 4 here, they're all around about the same age. They're all within 10 years of each other. Where is it? Down here. Yeah, they're all within sort of 10 years of each other, or not even 10, 5 years. So they're the 4 possibilities at the moment. And obviously these 2 are the ones I'm looking closer at because they were in that area at that time. So that's where I'm at the moment. And obviously it's a big confusing mess because so many brothers and sisters married other sets of brothers and sisters, which has made all of their kids just like super cousins. So the DNA has been really hard to kind of match up with people, purely because they all match each other. Good old Tassie.